Okay, so at this point, finally get to start putting some hands on the dog and doing some um, rebalancing. So to begin with the opening. So for the opening, I would use the heel of my hand and I would just start, you can either start way up on the head here, which Drew doesn't mind, or you could start at the neck for a dog that might be a little more sensitive around the head, and just run all the way down the bladder meridian, all the way to bladder 67. And do that at least 3 times on each side. And what you're doing in the opening is feeling for anything that might stand out. That could be hot spots, cold spots, could be um, any lumps, bumps. It's Drew. Drew likes this. He's found that he really likes acupressure. Anything that might stand out as unusual, hot spots, and you make a mental note of that as you're performing the opening. And the opening is also important because this changes from just petting the dog to intentional touch. It starts the process of balancing the energy and the chi in the dog. And like Drew, a lot of dogs really just find that relaxing. So the next thing that I would do, and you can't see it since I'm on the other side, but what I'm going to do is go down each one of the association points and just see what they feel like. I felt a little twinge energy at bladder 13, lung for Drew, one back, pericardium, one back, heart. I'm going to check in at the anticlinal, fall forward for bladder 18 for liver, back from there, 19, gallbladder. Points might be soft, points might be hard, they might be cold, they might be depressed, they might protrude a little bit. All of those are indications that there's an imbalance in any of those meridians. So I'm going to go one rib in, follow that up to where it intersects. That's spleen, or association point for spleen, which is bladder 20. One farther back is bladder 21, which you can finding that last rib coming up where that intersects with the bladder meridian. I keep my finger on stomach 21 and go to the end. That's where kidney is. You can feel kidney while I'm here. I've got my point on stomach and kidney. Halfway in between those is triple heater. And I can continue down and find kidney again. There's the wings of the ilium. And that would be bladder 25, 2/3 of the way down. Find the ilium. A little bit of a groan there. That was at small intestine, bladder 27. And then finally bladder 28, which is the association point for bladder. So all in all, he feels pretty good. I did feel a little bit of energy flowing at lung, in which case, if I did feel any reaction at the association points, a good thing to do is always check the alarm point, which for lung would be lung 1. To find lung 1 and check that alarm point to make sure that there's no issue with the organ for lung. Find the point of his shoulder here, and lung 1 is inside on the pectoral muscle then, just in that divot there, and I don't feel anything unusual at lung 1. So that might be just a little bit of energy at the lung meridian, which is the superficial level. It was just a twinge, so even touching that association point, I think probably balanced that out. And there was no reaction at the alarm point, which would indicate a deeper issue with that organ So what I usually do for Drew, since he is a rescue, is I like to, for one, check, especially with him, the association point for heart and pericardium, and I didn't feel any issues with him with those today. A point that I usually use on Drew is CV17, and that's on the ventral midline, about the level of his elbows. And I like to work that point for Drew because it helps with chi, helps with yang. A little bit of a twitch there. And so a couple of techniques that you can use. I'll move his forearm just a little bit so you can see there. You can either use direct thumb pressure to work a point. At the angle I'm at, I would probably use my forefinger, make a little tent with my middle finger. You can press in on those points a little bit and let it out. Press in a little deeper and let it out. Another technique you can use to bring up a little energy is to scratch it a little bit. So you can scratch those points. Another point that I like to use on him is pericardium 1, which is in his armpit on his chest. He seems to like that one as well. Okay. You can also form a little circle around the point. If you're moving clockwise, it tends to bring energy to the point. If you move counterclockwise, think of it as unwinding, and you can draw a little energy out of those points. There you go. Another good one to use on Drew that he really likes is the yin tong point. And for that one, I'll just stroke along the yin tong point. That's the third eye between his eyes. Seems very calming for him. And that's a point that you can just kind of stroke. And finally, the last point I'm going to do on Drew is Heart 7 and Pericardium 7. Heart 7 is in this deep groove on the lateral side, and pericardium is on the medial side of the forelimb, about the same level. And Drew usually really likes this one, and for this one I'm just going to hold those points. I feel a little beat on Heart 7 with my thumb, a little bit of chi in there. I'd hold those for about 15-20 seconds. I'm going to do the same on the other side. This one I'm feeling a little beat again at heart, a little bit of chi. And I had not done the other side for pericardium 1 in his armpit, so I'm going to do that one. I'm just going to do a short session on Drew right now. I'm going to end at pericardium then, and then I'm going to perform the closing for him. So the closing, much like the opening, is just stroking all along the bladder meridian, all the way down. You can go a little faster on the closing, which is just to rebalance and recenter everything, as well as provide a closing point for the session. And do 3 times again on either side. And add in just going down the shoulder. And do that on the other side as well. Does it feel good? Oh, you don't want your feet touched. That's what that one looks like. All right. Okay. If I hit a line